Peter, first of all, it's an absolute honour to be chatting with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I absolutely love the film. I studied World War I at A-level actually, and this just it rehumanised them. I thought it was incredible.
No, thank you very much.
So, I mean, I know that was one of your primary aims, making.
Well, you never set out to make an incredible film, but it's lovely when people tell you that. I just set out to make a film that was sort of I wanted these soldiers to have a voice again, because they're all dead. I mean, I can't interview them, you can't interview them. But there is a lot of interview, material that was done with the soldiers that were there, and I thought, well, their voices can. And then we found out how well we could. After a bit of experimenting, we found out how well we could restore the footage, which surprised me as well. So, to me, that combination of the footage, restored footage, plus the voices of the soldiers, well, it's very simple. I mean, it's not. There's nothing. There's no magic formula with the film. It's just about as simple as it could possibly be. Restore the film and use the voices of the soldiers, and that I thought keep it simple. Don't mention battles. Don't mention dates. Try to get rid of all the song, passion. They're all gone. It's not about, because the soldiers themselves say, well, we only experienced what we could see what we could actually see. We didn't know what was happening there. We didn't know what was happening there. Their war wasn't a global understanding of the battlefield and the tactics. Their war was in their trench at that moment.
You say it was simple, but
it's a simple idea. The concept was simple. Yeah.
Having that level of continuity, actually being able to form a story, something with cogency, which. You never see when you watch documentaries. You never see that linking. It actually forms a real story. And that in itself can't be simple.
Well, I don't want to keep saying it's simple, because I should do the opposite, should I? Well, it was really, really hard. But I mean, what it was really was it was allowing I was given 600 hours of recordings, which I listened to like a couple of times before we ever did a thing, and obviously the story I was telling was contained in those 600 hours. If somebody had given me another 600 hours or something different on, I would have had to have done the same exercise with that. So the story came from, it wasn't, I didn't write a script beforehand and then find things to match up. I literally just listened, and I picked out, I listened to these guys all talking. And the interviews with them, most of them start, where were you born, where you used to go to school, tell us about joining up, these oral history interviews, and they go through the whole thing to the end. And so, they tell us pretty much a linear story of beginning through to the end. And so hearing them over and over again, I just felt, well, this is really the story. And a lot of them are saying much the same sort of thing, different ways they say it. But at the end of the day, it was a simple story, sorry about the simple word. It was a start at the beginning of the war and go through the experience of the war and go through the typical experience of a British soldier. And then obviously you've got to you can't finish with it with the war still going, because spoiler alert, people might not know who wins, and but also they said very poignant things about the end of the war, which really I thought they were surprised by those, so I wanted to do that, and then coming back to England after the war at the end. And so it's what I heard. I didn't know what I was going to do, and I listened to the 600 hours a couple of times, and those voices sort of told me the story. The story itself is simple, start at the beginning and go to the end. But what was tricky was taking 120 different interviews and sort of editing them together so it's like one continuous story. That was actually it was fun but tricky. And Jabez Olsen, our editor, spent weeks and weeks and weeks working on the dialogue and tidying up, because what you've also got is the actual recordings have got you say, and we were what was it? It was a thing. So we wanted to just edit. We edited out all the ums and ahs and made it sort of as smooth as we edited out places. If they mentioned, we were in the front line of the Somme, well, we'd say, we just make it, we were in the front line. We did on the Somme, because I didn't want to make it about the specific thing. So there was a lot of work to do on the dialogue, but it really, in a weird way, it sort of the story told itself, because the voices of the men, which is all I had to work with, they told their story, and their story, each from man to man, each of the men, it wasn't that, they all had their own experiences, but their general experience was very similar, so it wasn't, and I just all I had to do, if I wanted to talk about the food, then I had like 50 guys talking about food, so I just had to pick the 2 or 3 that were the funniest or the best, it was choice really. You know, there was, you know, everybody talked about the same stuff. So I had the luxury of picking the best ones and the funniest ones to tell the particular stories. Funny or poignant or sad, you know, whichever it was.
And having actually that contrast you say about funny and sad, was that always an intention to kind of switch between them? Because they do switch quite, not jarringly, but it is very sudden. You're not necessarily expecting it. You just suddenly see this, and was that something you really tried to do? Is that something?
Not tried to do. I mean, it's what they experienced. So, you know, one day they're talking about, you know, gambling in the trenches. Next day they're talking about their friend's head getting split in half by a shell. I mean, that's what they're saying. That's what their life was. You know, laughter and fun one day, death the next day, and they, you know. So I mean, you can't avoid it. I mean, the First World War had terrible, appalling, you know, violence in the sense of you know the battles and the killing and you know that's war. That's what war is. But it also had a lot of fun and humour, which is not the war isn't funny. We're not saying that the First World War is funny. We're saying the soldiers who were in the war had to resort to humour, black humour, in order to actually stay sane, and that's where the humour comes from. It's not like, oh gosh, look at the funny German fellow over there. Isn't that funny? You know, the humour comes from these guys who are desperately trying to stay sane, and the last vestige I think that humanity goes to is it resorts to humour, black humour, and then I think you go mad after that. You know, the next step is going insane. But some soldiers did, but they are terribly funny when they're dark humour, terribly funny. Dead German guts all hanging out. You know, they shoved a pipe in his mouth, told him to get up. And now, you know, that's their way of dealing with it. Imagine how horrific that would look. Imagine how awful it would smell. You know, but they're making fun of it. Terribly black humour. They have to. I mean, if they don't make fun of it, they are going to kind of go nuts. I think a lot of them came back from the war, you know, not insane because they had employed a defensive humour. So the First World War is a lot funnier than what people actually imagine on the level. If you get into the personal level of the soldiers, that's how they survive. And it's not just this. What's in the movie? They drew cartoons. They had trench magazines that they would make here, and so they're funny today. They're really funny. You know, so humour was being deployed right along the Western Front by the soldiers to try to hang in there, try to keep themselves sane. Humour was a weapon in a way that they were using on themselves to sort of just to cope with it.
And my last question.
Yes.
I just want to ask. So the aim of this film, you kind of are you making it? Would you say more for people today, or the men in the past? So, or a combination of the both. But,
well, for people today, because obviously, I mean, I know what you're saying. I mean, the men in the past. I mean, I'm making it. Well, largely, I guess I'm making it and letting their voices. I'm making it sort of on their behalf, if you wanted to say that. I mean, these voices exist on tapes and in the BBC and the Imperial War Museum. Anybody can access these recordings and many others that we didn't use. And so I just created a movie which allows a lot of these voices to tell the story. I don't have a political agenda. I didn't set out. I mean, the movie found its own way. I mean, I wouldn't have probably used all the voices if it hadn't been for the restoration or suddenly restoring the footage. And I was incredibly, I was stunned at how the faces of the men suddenly came out like real people, like humans. And so therefore, I thought, okay, well, if I'm getting that, then the voices of the film should be their voices. So it sort of made it. That sort of one thing led to the other, and it was very organic. I didn't go into it with any agenda at all. I didn't even know what I was going to do. But one step at a time, and it just sort of put itself together.
You found the statue in the marble.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Peter, for talking with me. Thank you.
Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Thank you.